Hey everyone, it's Farhana again. Um, so the procedure for the biopsy from the last video, just so you know, it was fine. The needle wasn't too bad. Um, I did have to have the area covered, and they had those sticky tapes. I forget what they're called, but they're not stitches, but they're like sticky tapes. I know there's a word for it, but I don't know what it is. Um, but anyhow, that kind of holds the opening together, and then eventually it kind of just falls. They fall off whenever they're ready to fall off. I have a bruise about that big, just where the biopsy happened, but it's not painful or anything, and it's quite fine. I think the only thing that's kind of like interesting is the color, but it's kind of yellowish because when a bruise fades off, it kind of becomes yellow and, looks the way it does. Anyhow, so where am I? Okay, so with this episode, as you can probably guess, because I've referred to it before in the other previous videos, I did get a phone call from the doctor after the biopsy was done. I was pretty impressed with the turnaround time because the biopsy was done on a Friday, and I got a phone call from the doctor on Tuesday, first thing in the morning. And so let me speak to you a little bit about how that phone call went. It was a little bit of a late start to the morning. It was probably sometime after 9 o'clock. I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom, and I had just texted a friend to let them know that I was really wanting to hear from the doctor pretty soon here. Just the waiting time was getting a little like, I just need to know, although I hadn't waited too long. As soon as I texted that message and I started brushing my teeth, sure enough, my phone started ringing, and I had to spit out what I had in my mouth, and quickly answer the phone right in the middle of brushing my teeth. And so the doctor was on the other line, and they introduced themselves. They're the same doctor who did the biopsy, and they're like, yeah, how's the site looking? And I was like, well, it's healing pretty well, and I guess it's gotten a little itchy, which is a good thing because it's healing. And she's like, yeah, okay. And then she's like, okay, so we got the results. Is this a good time? And I was like, sure. And so she told me, I'm sorry to say this, but the results for the biopsy have come out as that it's invasive ductal carcinoma, which is a type of breast cancer. And in that moment when she said those words, I felt my body kind of just freeze up. My hands at that point, as I was holding the phone, were shaking. They were trembling. And I think after she said that, everything in my brain kind of just shut down. I was really trying hard to take in more of the information, trying to understand what was going to happen next. And I couldn't cohesively and concisively put all the information she was saying into my brain. I know as a mindfulness teacher, I have learned a little bit about the neuroscience of how our brain works. And I feel like in the moment when she shared with me what I was diagnosed with, my brain went into the freeze mode. It went into, the fight, flight, or freeze. I was in complete frozen state. And so taking in information at that time, was very, very challenging. What I was able to make out was, like I said, the type of cancer it is, invasive ductal carcinoma. I recall her telling me that she was very shocked by the results because we don't really have breast cancer in the family, not at least in terms of immediate family members, maybe extended, but not immediate. So that was a shocker to me, as it was a shocker to her in a way. But in a really weird way, and I'll have to explain this in my videos down the road as you learn about my journey. There was a sense that I kind of knew this was going to happen, and I feel like there's been a knowing for a long time that this type of diagnosis was going to come into my life. And I don't know how quite to explain why I know that or why I knew that, but I just did. And so, but still, that doesn't take away from the fact that it was still shocking. And I think it was more shocking as well because it's like, holy shit, this is really happening. Like, I knew it was going to happen, and it's really happening. I think the more I think about it, and still continue to process it, it's I feel that I manifested that this disease. I called it into my life. We've talked about, you hear about manifestation all the time and how to manifest your desires and stuff like that in a really peculiar way. This is something that I had called into as a want. And so that was the shock factor, realizing the power of that we have over manifesting things that we bring into our life. But I'm going to talk more about that in later videos as I vlog. Anyhow, so I shared the news with my mom, and she was in shock, and she shed tears, and she was shock and sadness in that moment. And then I notified my family members and close friends as well. And then I decided that I wanted to do something with this. I have a son who's 8 years old. He'll be turning 9 this month. And this is not a piece of news that I wanted to keep away from him. It's not a piece of news I felt like I needed to protect him from. I see that when we protect people from certain things or situations, that sense of protection comes deeply from a place of fear. And I don't see this diagnosis as something that I'm afraid of. It's something that I look at as another part of my journey. I feel like I've been through so much in my life, and so much of it came from places of fear and came as outcomes because of these fear-based thoughts that I had, that over the last 5 years, especially through my healing work that I have done for myself, and that the more people that I work with, I realized that fear is a state of mind. And a lot of the work that I do with mindfulness has constantly reminded me that, we can either come from a place of fear and then behave accordingly in terms of how we think and how we act and how we react and how we project and how we judge, or we can come from a place of love, which completely changes the entire experience of any thought process, any perception that we have, any projection that we have. If we come from a place of love, we can immediately begin to shift the entirety of the experience. And so that's what I've been talking to my son about for the past few years. As I've come to understand this more, and as I continue to understand it more, I'm better able to share that with my son, and we have these deep conversations about these things. And so when I eventually presented it to my son, we came up with a few fun things, and this is what is really important. And this is where I want, with this episode, for you all to get an understanding of how I am perceiving this experience of cancer, because this cancer really is an experience that I'm having. It's not something that I own, but it's an experience that I'm simply going to flow through. So invasive ductal carcinoma, which is just a tongue twister in my mind, just difficult to say. I've decided I'm going to reference that term, IDC, or invasive ductal carcinoma, or cancer, when I'm most of the time talking to doctors and physicians about it. The rest of the time, I am, wanting to be reminded that IDC is actually a reminder of my infinite divine connection. So the acronym IDC, for medical purposes, for scientific purposes, so to speak, is invasive ductal carcinoma. Overall, the invasive ductal carcinoma is here to remind me of my IDC, which is my infinite divine connection. And so I'm going to flow through this journey focusing on my infinite divine connections. And what that means is that every single experience that I have, I'm going to try to remind myself that there's something in this for me. And just like the experiences that I had in the waiting room, where I met that beautiful girl sitting in the waiting room, and I was reading Friendship with God, and we were both reminded of our friendship with God, with Mary Lou showing up and showing me her divine presence through the nurse that attended to me the entire time during the biopsy. All of these clues, all of these signs are, for me, an indication to an invitation to stay present and to notice on purpose, especially at this time, because this would ideally be the time where people are going to be in fear. So if you have gone on this journey, if you have been on this journey, I can almost for certain guarantee that for those of you who are cancer survivors, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I can guarantee you that you have so many stories to share about faith and courage and resilience and friendship with God and His divine presence and miracles and all of that. I can guarantee that all of us together would be able to share and talk about all of that. Um, but this is also an invitation for those of you who, might be going through this and might be in a really difficult place. And I empathize with you, and I share with you my love and my light and my message, so that I you can perhaps become curious and invite yourself to look at what is happening in these situations for you, and to invite you to consider that there's a blessing perhaps in this for you. Um, as I sit here in my son's room right now, I feel tempted to kind of just flip the camera over just a second. And if you can see, hold on, I'm going to take myself over for you to just look at this poster. And it says sign language. And is it possible that the divine spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, is it possible that we are receiving signs all the time and maybe we're just missing them? Or maybe we think that they're supposed to show up a certain way, but they don't show up in that way. They show up in a completely different way. Is it possible that there is something to all of it? And that in the times where we feel the most scared, where we feel the most uncertain, where we feel that our health is being compromised or is at stake, can we tap into that IDC? Can we tap into our infinite divine connection and really find God in places where we've lost hope and when we're afraid and scared? I'm going to continue my journey with IDC, flowing and sharing with you all the divine synchronistic experiences. I know that I am going to need them on my own journey when I perhaps have kind of lost hope, or when I'm feeling uncertain, or when I'm feeling afraid. Because don't get me wrong, I can't say that there are times where I don't feel afraid. I'm human. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, and the human experience can get very, very challenging. But the only thing that I have is hope and faith and trust. And these types of signs, these types of synchronicities, you want to call them coincidences or random things that happen, I'm not worried about the language. All I'm saying is let's go ahead and invite curiosity into these moments and find that perhaps maybe something is happening for us rather than to us. I'm going to continue sharing my journey. Please continue to share your comments and your resources. If you have any questions, please reach out. You can connect with me on social media, on Facebook. All the information is going to be shared. So please follow me, and let's share this journey together. Sharing this journey of our infinite divine connection, our IDCs. Share with me photos and pictures and comments. I want to hear your stories of your IDCs, because I know that perhaps when I lose that positivity And when I'm feeling scared, your IDCs will certainly be helpful. So I want to invite you all to share on social media, hashtag IDC, hashtag infinite divine connection, and let's all start a community where we're tapping into our IDCs and making our day more fulfilling and filled with love, and just have fun. Y'all stay blessed. Hashtag IDC, hashtag infinite divine connection. Love and light to all. Bye.